Hello, okay, so today I'm going to talk about this watercolour landscape painting that I did in my sketchbook. I did do a previous one with this green and this blue colour, but I was trying to replicate some of the landscape I'd seen driving through France, and I felt like the green and the blue didn't exactly describe it because there were these areas of quite sort of brown ground as well in the foreground, and I wanted to add this in and also make the colours a little bit more muted. So the colour palette I used was Indigo, Burnt Sienna, Winsor Yellow and Ultramarine. Okay, so I've just got the colours there in my palette, and I'm going to be mixing these together to create more neutral colours. I just want a sense of the colours I saw in the landscape. And I'm going to add Aquapasto as well. That's what I was showing just there. That's a watercolour medium that can change the consistency of the paint and make it a little bit thicker, and you'll get to see that towards the end of this demonstration. So let's get started. I'm just taping off the border there in my sketchbook so that when I remove it I've got a nice clean edge. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing at the beginning is using a bit of a wet and wet technique. So I'm just putting down some clean water onto the paper here, and I'm not adding too much, but I'm making sure it's fully covered. And then I'm getting my indigo blue and I'm putting a bit at the top, and then at the bottom I added a bit of the burnt sienna to that, and that made this kind of greeny grey colour. And I'm just keeping the washes quite light to start with. I'm putting a bit more burnt sienna in there. And then while it's still wet, I got some indigo and I just went in there with some of that colour in the middle there, and actually just a bit darker to the left. And I was just being quite sort of free at this stage. I knew I wanted the blue to be in the background and the green in the foreground, so I just laid the colours down quite instinctively, really. I wasn't worrying too much about where the painting was going, and I just got the end of my brush there and added in some lines. That's always quite nice as a contrast to the edges where you get the wet and wet. It's more feathered, and then the lines sort of are a nice hard contrast to that. And I actually tried to use my squeegee a little bit there to move the paint. But the squeegee works a little bit better when you add the Aquapasto, which I'll do later. And I'm generally moving my paintbrush from left to right because I want to give this sort of horizontal sense to this landscape. And at this stage I just let the layers dry, and I added the Aquapasto to some of those colours. And there I go in with the indigo and the ultramarine. Actually that was a mix, and there's some Aquapasto added to that, so you get a bit more texture when you add the Aquapasto, and I really like that. I think on top of pure watercolour, the Aquapasto then works really well because you can start to get a bit more texture, and when you use the end of your brush in those layers with the Aquapasto, you can sort of get these quite light lines as well, which is quite nice. And there I'm using the squeegee, and like I said, I think the squeegee works really well with the Aquapasto, and actually I use this in some of my other paintings where I add Aquapasto, and you can check those out on my channel. And I'm sorry because the table was wobbling a bit, and I think sometimes the camera shakes a bit. But what I'm doing here is I just decided to lighten up that area on the left a bit, so I put some more ultramarine on top. And I was just being quite free about this. I wasn't sort of copying any one particular part of the landscape. I just wanted to give a feeling of it. Okay, so you can see I've come to this point fairly quickly, and you know, I'm not putting too much detail into any of it. I really just want it to be like an impression of the landscape, really. Now I'm going to put the music up for a bit while I finish this part off, and then I'll jump in again in a bit. Okay, so I felt like this was sort of finished at this point. I wanted to take the masking tape off and just see what it looked like. Okay, so I mean, more or less I was quite happy with it at this stage, and I could have called it finished really, but there was this line here and I felt like the sky was a bit dark, and this little mark on the left. So I also thought that I could maybe darken the middle of it a little bit. So I'm just going to put some masking tape back around the top part, because I'm going to be adding some water to the sky and just trying to lift off some of that paint with tissue paper. So you can lift off watercolour paint after you've put it down, and I'll do the same for that sort of dark line on the left, and I'll just also add in the darker area in the middle. But I really enjoyed doing this painting, and it's quite a sort of simple, straightforward technique, so you can create paintings fairly quickly, and I hope that if you give it a go you enjoy it as well. And if you do give it a go, then leave a comment, or if you have a question, leave a comment, and I always get back to people. You don't have to use Aquapasto for a painting like this, obviously. I have done, and I do really like the effect of the Aquapasto. I haven't painted an awful lot in oils, but to me it gives the paint a kind of oil paint feeling that's just a bit sort of thicker and easier to control than watercolour. So it's a really exciting way to change up your watercolours if you haven't used it before. So as I said, in the background I'm making these small changes to this painting. Now whether I improved it or not, I don't know. Sometimes it's good to just do things in 2 stages, and that's what I did with this one. But it's also good to know when to stop with watercolour, and I was pretty happy with this painting. I just added a little bit more blue in the middle there, because there was a sort of lighter area that was bothering me, and I just held the camera with my hand because I didn't have the camera in the stand. It's not really a very good idea to try and paint and hold a camera at the same time. But anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed this demonstration, and if you did, then please hit the like button, and if you want to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.